Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, Congressman Paul Gosar talks about immigration reform, a proposed copper mine in Superior, and other congressional issues. And an immigration attorney talks about the recent raids at a local chain of car washes. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Attorney General Tom Horne and Secretary of State Ken Bennett have filed a lawsuit asking the courts to require those who register to vote using a federal registration form to prove that they're U.S. citizens. Horne and Bennett argue that Arizona's Proposition 200 requires proof of citizenship when using state forms to register, so the same requirements should apply to federal forms. Horne says that a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that went against the state earlier this year paved the way for the lawsuit. Congressman Paul Gosar co-hosted a town hall yesterday in Superior to hear public comment on a proposed copper mine in the area. And tomorrow, Representative Gosar is part of a congressional field hearing focusing on the IRS and the EPA. Joining us now in studio is Congressman Paul Gosar, who represents Arizona's 4th Congressional District. It's good to see you again.
Great seeing you, Ted.
Thanks for being here. Hey, this town hall in Superior now and the copper mine. Boy, we've done a lot of stories on this. What did you hear at the town hall?
We had a great turnout. You know, it was a joint town hall between Congresswoman Kirkpatrick and myself, having an open discussion about the facts and how they pertain to the Superior land transfer. So that the 3rd largest copper mine in the world could be opened up and bring over $1 billion a year for the next 50 years to the state.
What is the status of that land transfer bill?
Well, in the House, we're ready to bring it forward to the full House, which could happen as early September, maybe as late as the first week in October. The Senate has the same type of bill. It just needs to have a hearing within the Senate in Natural Resources, which should be fairly quick-like. And you never know what can happen. It could be happening sometime this year, maybe next year.
And the land exchanges, the exchanges for land in Superior, near Superior, for the copper mine, in exchange for what, like 5,000 some odd acres elsewhere?
2,400 acres in exchange for 5,500 of pristine land that lots of environmental groups that would like to have and consolidate. And the mine, the Resolution Copper, owns about 75% of this patented area. They just need one little small part to fill in the blank. And it's an old campground that was there.
Have environmental concerns been met on this? Because as I mentioned, we've done a lot of stories and there's been a lot of questions regarding environmental waste disposal, the whole 9 yards. Talk about environmental concerns.
Absolutely. A lot of what you're hearing is that a lot of people would like to see a pre-NEPA done before any land exchange. But Ted, that's like you and me. If I'm selling you a piece of property, you have to go through planning and zoning and through the whole environmental aspects before we make the transfer. Congress has that plenary aspect. My bill, our bill, and my bill precludes anything going forward within that mine without going through the proper environmental protections and assays from federal, state, and local entities. It's already being done. They can't go past go in order to do that.
So when those who say that the environmental studies should be done first before the land swap, you're saying they are done first?
No, they're done before any mining can actually be done.
Before any mining, but the land swap can still happen before those things.
Absolutely, and that's Congress's plenary power. And what they're ceding is saying the executive branch should have to do this again. So we'll do a pre-NEPA. Who's going to bear the cost of that? The taxpayers and or the business? And then once the land exchange, you got to go through another NEPA again? It's ridiculous. All the processes, the Antiquities Act, a water, dialoguing with native tribes, all has to be done before you can actually commence with the mine. The land transfer is only that, a transfer of land. It does not allow the company to go past go without doing any of and all of the environmental impacts.
So I'm trying to see what the other side is saying, and what they seem to be saying is, why even bother with the land transfer until the NEPA studies are completed?
And my take is it's going to be done anyway. In regards to that, you shouldn't have to do it twice, and I'm not ceding the executive branch any more power than they already have.
The mining plan, we've heard as well, there's no completed mining plan of operation for everything from processing, extracting, crushing, the whole waste disposal, all of that. They're saying that they still don't entirely understand the mining plan of operation. Has that been completed and filed?
Well, that's not due yet. That's coming up here shortly in the timetable of aspects. I mean, be patient and look. These are the numbers that are coming forward. In the mine plan of operation, they're going to come forward with those, and then they've pretty much got everything resolved. They're carrying over half of the 50-year water supply that they'll be using. They've actually invested in reclamation for reused water to use over and over again. The only thing that they're working on, and they've had a very open, transparent process, is where they're going to place the tailings. They've been very, great ideas in regards to looking at ABC for construction for our roads, but I'm open to the public and to those dialogues.
So again, as with the NEPA studies, for those who say, we need to see this mine. I guess we had some folks from Superior who wanted to see the mining plan of operation before the land swap. You would say?
Well, I mean, this is a plenary power of Congress, and chances are it's probably going to be done already because the mine operation or the man plan of operation is going to be coming forward. It's almost they're almost ready for that. So it may even supersede even this legislation, seeing that mine plan of operation. But this is a land transfer, nothing more, nothing less. We want to make sure that they're held in check. This is a community event, making sure that they honor all environmental impacts across the board.
And what about American Indian concerns? The land sacred to some tribes?
No,
not sacred to any tribe.
Well, this doesn't have any bearing within the reservation aspects. And the Forest Service conducted an exhaustive research of the campground, and they show no borders of the tribe with this. Now, Apache Leap, which is off the table, does have some semblance for religious connotations, and it's been taken off the table. But the rest, it shows no inquiry. And that also tells me that, I've dialogued in my first term that I represented this area numerous times with the San Carlos. We addressed a lot of their ideas and conversations. They refuse to talk to any type of businesses because they only want government-to-government contact. Well, if you're a government, you need to talk to all businesses and all peoples that are involved in some type of aspect. And that was brought out in the hearing last night, is that some of the tribes asked, what is the status that the tribe can participate? There are 2 studies and 2 polls out right now that show that less than 20% of the tribe actually believe the way that Chairman Rambler and the council have actually gone. They want the jobs to come into the area, and they want to have a shot at those jobs coming to the San Carlos.
Raucous meeting last night, or everyone pretty well behaved?
They're very behaved. There were some protesters. That's great because the First Amendment right allows you to peacefully protest, and we ought to hear everybody's viewpoints. But I think it was very civil, and there was a lot of more comments than questions. Believe it or not, a lot of people, as you already heard, are very poignant about how their opinions on Superior. Immigration
reform. I want to get your thoughts on the Senate plan.
Dead on arrival.
No chance.
No chance.
How come?
It's an illegal bill. It's unconstitutional.
How so?
It generates revenues and taxes, and that can't start without being generated in the House. And my understanding is it hasn't even been forwarded to the House because they know it'll be blue-slipped. We have to have this conversation about immigration. I engage this. I talked to the Chamber and the U.S. Chamber and the Arizona Chamber in 2011. And I said, this is such a core issue to America that we ought to have small bills that we talk articulately with the American public and get their take in it, not be afraid of the conversation. In the Senate bill, you had a very limited debate in one committee and a very limited debate with limited amendments on the Senate floor. America knows what's behind big bills. That's called Obamacare. You shouldn't have to pass a bill to find out what's in a bill. And what we should be doing is engaging the American public in regards to what's a part of our American fabric.
This seemed to be a bipartisan Senate plan, though, including some of Arizona's Senate delegation, both Arizona senators involved with this. So it sounds as though it's coming over to the House with some bipartisanship. Does that make any difference at all?
A bad bill's a bad bill, whether it's bipartisan or not. And I think from that standpoint, I'll call it, if it looks like a duck, smells like a duck, walks like a duck, it's a duck. And that's what we've done in Congress is we've pacified poor legislation. We ought to get back to good legislation. In fact, I've actually asked leadership, the Speaker and the Majority Leader, to bring the content of this bill into the committees of reference and compare and contrast what's going on in the House. Smaller bills, border security, visa reforms, E-Verify, worker programs, and actually show the American public what exactly they're entertaining in this bill.
So the head of Judiciary Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, said just recently, no pathway to citizenship. That is one thing that he's taking off the table, which I think surprised some folks because they weren't sure exactly how he stands. How do you stand?
I want to see us, I'm a science guy, Ted, and I can't solve problems until you give me fixed numbers. And so the first thing that has to be on the table is trust is a series of promises kept, is go back to 1985, 86, and actually provide border security. And that means that you have to do it in an enterprising way, like Yuma does. Yuma does a local, federal, and state all working together, and that's why they haven't had an illegal border crossing in almost 6 years. And they enforce the rule of law. The American public believes that we have such limited resources that we all ought to work together. And what you do at the border, you do at an international airport, you do it in Pinedale, Wyoming, you do in Buffalo, New York. Everybody's got to be involved in it. And that's why you have to have such an articulated, well thought out, time-consuming type of process here.
It sounds like it's a time-consuming process by way of the Senate plan, though.
Theoretically. There's lots of mays, no shalls. And border security goes back to Homeland Security, which has been a very poor advocate. There are no metrics set there. Congress was given the oversight of immigration, and in the House bill, those metrics come back to Congress. They utilize Homeland Security to work with all entities, but to answer back with border security to Congress, where that plenary power belongs.
Is the House Republican caucus pretty much set here? Because I've heard a discharge petition is possible. Discharge petition meaning just taking that Senate thing, throwing it on the House. If you have enough folks agreeing to do that, you'd need some Republicans agreeing to do that. How strong is Republican opposition?
I think it would cost leadership jobs.
Really?
Yes, sir.
So you don't think that's going to happen?
I don't. I mean, you know, we run by a framework of constitutionality. We learned what Obamacare was, because this is exactly a strip and paste type legislation. That's exactly what the Senate wants to do, is have that debate here. We should be upholding the Constitution, not advocating or changing it to suit our means. We should live by the Constitution and its founding principles.
Last question on this. Critics of the Republican position say that the party is further jeopardizing Latino votes with their stand in the House. How do you respond to that?
I find it offensive, because what I'm engaging is people, all the fabrics of our country. It's not just Latinos, it's Indian Americans, it's Pakistani Americans, it's people lining up that are sitting trying to find the right way to go about this. We're a rule of law. And Washington, D.C. is a poor set of rule of laws, Ted. I mean, we have an attorney general that's violating the rule of law right and left. In the James Rosen case, pick or choose one of the way. He either lied to Congress or he lied to a judge. And then he defies the rule of Congress or rule of the Supreme Court in the Voting Rights Act. Shameful. That's absolutely shameful.
And speaking of which, you are now have a field hearing coming up regarding the IRS and the EPA, a couple of government agencies. The subtitle is Bureaucrats Out of Control. I think we know where you stand on this.
Absolutely.
This is a field hearing with the Republican delegation here, the congressional delegation. What's this all about?
What we're trying to do is talk to people, because the bureaucrat's out of control. It's not a Republican issue, a Democrat issue. It's an American issue. We actually have seen the IRS being involved with the SEC in the federal elections campaign in regards to conservative groups. We saw a discharge of improprieties. There may be a few liberal groups that were actually included, but very, very few. But most of them got their waiver of 501(c)(3)s and 4s. So what we want to do is hear from Americans how they're being implicated, because government has to answer to the people. That's the way the Constitution works. And we need to rein this in, but we want to hear from them.
And the IRS would have a role in the Affordable Care Act, obviously. I understand that you don't want the IRS to be at all involved in Obamacare?
Not at all.
How would you work tax credits and such, though, for businesses and for families?
I think that we need to have that conversation about the tax code, and I think everybody's there. I think we've got a broken tax system. Why not fix it? I think that what we need to do is make it a fair playing field, broaden the base, making sure that people invest in America and keep more of their money, because Americans know how to do better with their money than the federal government.
And real quickly, even today, I believe someone in the committee regarding this business of the IRS, what is some call a scandal, is coming out and saying even more progressive groups, liberal groups, what have you, were on the list, and words like emerge, words like occupy, words like progressive were part of the. Apparently the Inspector General of the IRS didn't know a heck of a lot of what he was talking about when he first testified. Does that change what you see? Because some call this a scandal and others are saying this really isn't a scandal.
Well, I think that's what the beauty of it is get to the facts, share the facts, and have an open discussion about it. And we've seen the administration thwarting every single aspect. I mean, for example, when we asked the Attorney General, have you appointed, or the FBI, have you appointed anybody to look in, and what's their name? You couldn't even look at that. You know, an accountable government is a responsible government that calls out the good and the bad. And when you see Lois Lerner taking the fifth in front of my committee and then trying to give her take on it and then claim the fifth, something's wrong here. It's not like we're filled with a plethora of scandals, because we are. What we need to do is we need to answer back to the American people.
Before we go, you have to talk about the EPA and the Navajo Generating Station and what seems to be a compromise deal with closing one of those 3 units there. Your thoughts on that? I'm
not in favor of it.
Because?
Well, first of all, we're basing it on flawed science. I mean, the EPA, when you're talking about the Clean Air Act and regional haze, is a state plenary power. It's designated to the states to do. The EPA has come in strong-handed, not even working with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. Number two is it involves treaty obligations in which the Navajo Generating is part of. And the plenary power of that is Congress. And I'm not ceding anything to the administration in that aspect. If they want to do something, they're going to have to come through Congress with some jurisdiction.
So if we did have SRP, CAP, the feds, the tribes, all coming to a compromise, trying to balance environmental concerns with power stability concerns and
so
energy.
You're going to have to bring it through Congress.
You're saying, nice try, but come to me first.
You got to have Congress involved in that doctrine.
Are you against EPA agreeing to this proposal?
I'm disagreeing to this, the way this was conceived and deliberated. This has to be an open process with all stakeholders and including Congress, because you cannot violate a treaty obligation with having Congress's consent.
It's good to have you here. Thanks for
Ted,
joining.
thanks for having me.
U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents raided 16 Danny's Car Wash locations over the weekend. The company is accused of rehiring hundreds of known undocumented workers. 78-count indictment targeted managers of the company with allegations of document fraud and ID theft. Here to talk about the raids is immigration attorney Elizabeth Chatham, who chairs the Arizona chapter of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So what exactly does a federal indictment allege? What allegedly went on here?
Well, this particular indictment was done by ICE, the enforcement arm of the Department of Homeland Security. And they went to the different car washes because they believed that there were unauthorized workers that were hired by the employer and that the employer assisted or were involved in creating false documentation in order to hire them. And part of why this is so serious is because these workers were originally identified as not having proper work authorization, and the employer made a decision to let them go, and now subsequently they were rehired. And there were allegations that these workers didn't cure the defect and get proper documentation, but that there were fraudulent documentation that was created.
So basically workers rehired under different names, under different IDs, and again, these are workers that the feds were already aware of because they went to Danny's a couple of years ago and said, this isn't working, get rid of these folks. Danny's
right.
And now allegedly Danny just rehired them.
Right, that is what's being presented in the indictment documentation. And you know, it's a pretty serious violation that they're involving not just immigration violations, but employment and labor laws, tax evasion, and conspiracy to create fraud, which are criminal allegations. So there's a whole host of a variety of federal charges, and they were primarily focusing on managers and management of the employer. And that's why this is so serious, because they were knowingly hiring and engaging in these violations.
So supervisors and managers targeted here, were any charges filed against workers that you're aware of?
The focus of the investigation was not the workers, but there were over 200 employees that were interviewed by ICE, and they were determined to either have proper work authorization or not to have proper work authorization. And then 179 were taken in for processing, and ultimately they were let go. No charges were filed against them. There were 30 that had prior criminal or prior immigration violations, and then those folks are being processed. Either they were being held in detention or they were ordered removed.
Were they aware, do you know, were they aware of the managers and the supervisors' alleged actions? And does that even matter?
It seems to me, as someone who does help employers through an I-9 audit, that if the employer chose to terminate employment, there probably was some sort of communication about why that these employees were being let go. They may have approached the employee and asked, could you please provide identifiable documentation to prove to us that you are work authorized and who you are. And either that person may not have come back the next day, or they may have told the employer, I don't have these documents that you're requesting. And so there probably was an exchange of information, and I would say that the workers more than likely were aware.
What about the owner of the car wash? Any charges against him?
Not that I have seen. This is still an ongoing investigation. They're still going to have to see who the players were. It really identified and focused on managers. And if the employer knew and participated and did nothing to prevent it, then there could be further charges.
How unusual was this action, and does this signal some kind of a shift in ICE strategy?
I think it's unusual. I haven't seen this large scale of an ICE-focused raid in Arizona in recent history. Normally what you hear about are our Sheriff Joe Arpaio's worksite raids that happen where he seems to target the employees for identity theft, and then they might be arrested, and then they may have an immigration impact whether or not they're convicted of a identity theft charge. Here, the difference is that they're focusing on the employer, and the analogy would be, are you mowing the lawn or are you pulling the weeds? ICE is trying to pull the weeds and really clean up what they think is a problem. And the problem being employers that are knowingly hiring an unauthorized workforce.
So with that thought, do you think ICE is sending a message here?
I do. And I don't think this is the last type of worksite enforcement action that we're going to see. I think there's going to be several more. I think they're going to try to focus on employers that may have multiple, a high turnover rate of employees, low-wage workers, and they're trying to focus on larger employers because they want to set a precedent and say, we're not going to tolerate this. I think it's reflective of the Obama administration and what the administration has set as a priority. Immigration enforcement is a priority to this administration.
So with that in mind, how would, let's just call it comprehensive immigration reform, not necessarily the Senate plan, not the piecemeal approach that the House is looking at, but comprehensive immigration reform, how would that have impacted or affected this particular operation?
If we had a path for folks that are here and they want to fix their papers, we need to create a line that they can stand in. Right now, there is no line. So they can't get a work permit. They can't get a green card. They can't get citizenship because they have no mechanism to try to get that right now. There is an attitude that just because you're undocumented, you're a criminal, that you don't deserve to be here. And people raise their families, they have jobs, they contribute to paying taxes and file a tax return, and they want to be part of our society. And we need to make a choice and a decision as to if this population of immigrants are going to have a way to do that. Comprehensive immigration reform or piecemeal immigration reform, if there's a mechanism to give work permits or a visa and let people come out of the shadows, self-identify and say, there wasn't a way for me to do this properly in the past, and now you are giving me a chance to do it, I think the majority of folks would want to get their papers straightened out.
So, but we talked with Congressman Gosar about this earlier, I think the head of the House Judiciary Committee, who's very much involved with this, and everyone's kind of looking at for some sort of sign of what the House is going to do, basically said here this week that a path to citizenship Not going to happen. That's not going to be part of what the House wants to see. How important is that one aspect of immigration reform?
It's critical. It's part of the cornerstone of comprehensive immigration reform. I mean, if you're trying to say we are going to change immigration laws for prospective immigrants and ignore the people that are already here, it's not comprehensive. You can't ignore the people that are already here. They are already contributing, and you know, when you look at our deportation system, our detention facilities, the amount of money that is being put into border security and deportation, it is the majority of the budget for Department of Homeland Security. That you're going to maintain that and continue having that be a large expense for our country. If we were able to have reform, I think that would eliminate that backlog and that congestion.
All right, we got to stop you right there. Thank you so much for joining us.
It was a pleasure to be here.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us, and you have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.